So we'll be starting our presentation. So the goal of this webinar is to spark your interest on how to trade the NFP news, learning how to react and understand decision making in order to become a successful trader in the market. So what is non-farm payrolls and why is it that important? So basically NFP stands for non-farm payrolls, which is actually part of the employment situation report released by the US Department of Labor, which also includes labor force participation rate, the unemployment rate, average hourly earnings, and average work week hours, among many other statistics. The NFP component seems to get the most attention because it measures the actual number of paid employees, full and part-time, and the businesses and the government establishments. So basically, NFP is the number of employees that are enrolled either full-time or part-time, and whether in businesses and whether in government sector. So why is it important? Why is NFP important? Why do we count it as an important factor? And why do we look at it? So the report provides a fresh insight into the health of the US economy in general and the labor market conditions in particular. So basically, we look at the NFP because it gives us a good vision about the health of the US economy. What do we mean by the health of the US economy? We can see how much the employment rate is increasing, whether it's decreasing. So if the labor market is growing, that means more people are making money, and the more spending there will be. More spending results in a higher gross domestic product, which is the broadest measure of the economy. As we know, when we're talking about economy, we look at the GDP, which is the gross domestic product. Employment figures can also have an impact on interest rates, as higher employment will lead to higher interest rates because of central bank policies aimed at balancing inflation with growth. And as you probably know, interest rates are a significant factor for traders. So basically, we're experiencing this nowadays. We know that what is moving markets is the interest rate that the Fed is imposing them on the markets and on banks. So basically, interest rates are increasing because of inflation. And one of the factors that we look at, or the news that every time Powell says that let's look at the news that's coming out, we look at the NFP news, one of the news, which will indicate us about the employment. So basically here, we can see this graph. This was lastly in March. Now we have the upcoming ones, April, May, June, July. Apparently this month we're gonna get August. So to be accurate, the non-farm payrolls, the NFP number, is the total number of employees in all sectors, farming industries excluded. So we include all sectors, but we exclude farming industries, while the released figure is the monthly changes to this figure. So as you can see here, per month, January, February, March, April, each month, the change in the NFP, whether it's increasing or whether it's decreasing. Okay, one should therefore use the expression changes to NFP number more than the NFP number. So whenever there is this NFP news, we don't say that what is the NFP number. We say what is the change in the NFP number, because it's either increasing or it's decreasing, and it's a number that relies on the amount that we have of of employment. So it measures the number of jobs created or lost in the US economy, as we said, over the prior month. So for example, minus 200K means 200K jobs were lost in all non-agricultural business. I look at the history of NFP releases is a good starting point to get a feel for the job situation. Try to detect the long-term trend in the NFP figures if it's rising to falling. So as we can see here, in January 2022, it was around 450, 500,000. Then here it increased to 650. Now I'll get more into details. What does it mean when it's increasing and decreasing? then it went down, it decreased, it increased, it decreased, it increased, it decreased. Now we can see it's maybe at the lowest since 1 year back. So when is the NFP released? The non-farm payroll is published on the first Friday of every month at 8:30 New York time. Okay, so basically the NFP is always the first week of any month, and it's Friday. So for example, as we can see today, we are this week is the first week of August month. Tomorrow is Friday. This means tomorrow is the NFP coming out. And then we have the here, as we can see, okay, down here, the NFP for this week. Now we can see here the forecast and the previous, and eventually we're gonna wait tomorrow for the actual. We can find this in our social media platform. So traders and investors can keep track of the NFP report as well as the other important economic events by checking our weekly Forex calendar on our social media. So here, paying attention to the forecasted NFP results is of particular importance. If the NFP is reported in line with the forecast figures, then the reactions in markets tend to be minimal. Because it's expected, it will have already been factored into asset prices. It is when the actual results deviate significantly from the forecasted figures, which can prompt a significant reaction from the market. If the non-farm payroll comes in lower than forecast, as we can see, or as, for example, fewer jobs are created than expected, this reflects a slowdown in the job market, which is taken as a negative for the overall US economy. So basically, if the NFP comes out lower than what's expected, this will give us that there is a slowdown in the job market, and this is known as negative for the US economy overall. Vice versa, if the non-farm payroll comes in higher than forecast, as it is the case in the example above, as we can see the example before we gave, it is usually considered a positive sign for the US economy. So whenever the results, the actual comes below the forecast, this is bad for the economy. When it comes above the forecast, this is positive for the economy. However, if the non-farm payroll increases too fast, too quickly, it can be interpreted as an ancestor to an increase in inflation. So basically, when we see huge increase and consecutively increase, this means there is something wrong and the inflation is increasing, which we don't recommend. As we know, it's not good also for the economy. When this happens, it can spook the market, causing stocks to fall as investors anticipate a potential interest rate rise. So it is not always healthy to see NFP increasing every time, because this means there's something wrong, and this puts a question mark next to interest rate, and investors will be aware more and more. So now we're gonna move into how to interpret the NFP report. Before the publication of almost any macroeconomic indicator, including the NFP forecasts, are collected from economists and market analysts. This data can be easily found on our social media, GoToFX calendar. So basically, whenever you wanna take a decision, you just go into our calendar, you can see the forecast, you can see the previous, and if you wanna see the results, you either by story or you can check Forex Factory. And then we have the three columns labeled actual, as we said, forecast, and previous. And the figures denote the number of new jobs created. Actual represents the figures from the scheduled NFP report. and subsequently remains blank until after its publication. Forecast indicates the market consensus for the upcoming NFP figures, and the previous shows us the result from the last non-farm payroll. As we said, we have the previous is the result that came before. Forecast is expected one, and the actual is the real one that's gonna come up. As we can see here, here's the actual, here's the forecast, and here's the previous. As we said, the actual is what we are waiting for. That's gonna come here. Now the forecast is 203K, and the previous for the month before August, which is July, was 209K. So here is the number, and here is the previous. Here is the forecast. So expected decrease in employment to 203K, and tomorrow at 4:30 Dubai time, we'll be waiting for the results that will come out here. We can check this on Forex Factory. So how does the NFP affect the Forex market? When the non-farm payroll differs significantly from the forecast, there is usually a reaction in the markets. But how does NFP affect the market specifically? The effects of the NFP tend to be limited to currency pairs, which involve the US dollar. If these results come in higher than expected, this tends to have a strengthening effect on the USD, whereas if the results comes in lower than expected, the USD will often weaken. So how to trade the NFP? Regardless of the outcome of the NFP, currency pairs involving the USD tend to move volatile in the lead up to the announcement, and if the results deviate significantly from the forecast, this volatility is likely to intensify. So basically, when we expect or when we trade the NFP, we always work with a pair against the USD. We see the movements. Of course, it's going to be a volatile movement. Market will move crazy. This increased volatility provides trading opportunities. However, it's also accompanied by a significant increase in risk, and consequently, NFP trading can be risky. For this reason, many traders choose to stay out of the markets around its release. Those that do decide to trade should ensure they have proper risk and money management strategies in place. So, as we always talk about money management and risk management, it's like it goes back to you. You always have to trade it well, put your stop loss, your take profit, your market will move a lot. So NFP strategy, trading strategy example. Based on what we have learned about the NFP and its potential impact on the Forex market, we can sketch a basic NFP trading strategy. Let's look at the Euro-USD currency pair for our example and examine three different scenarios. First scenario, NFP reported better than forecasted. Reaction, we sell Euro-USD. Why? Because the NFP result came better. So as we said in the slide, 3 slides before, that if this number comes better than the forecast, the actual comes better than the forecast, we need to sell. Sell what? Sell Euro, and which is positive for the USD. Whereas if the NFP reported worse than forecasted, so the actual is less than the forecast, we have to buy Euro USD. Okay. If NFP consistent with forecast, so it's like close to the forecast or maybe very similar, we won't see any action. We see like basic action in the market. This table could provide the basis for a simple NFP trading strategy with traders digesting the release and then taking a corresponding position in the market shortly after. So to trade the NFP or not to trade the NFP? Please guys, meantime, drop me some questions on the chat box. I'll be answering them by the end of this webinar. Okay, so Of course, in addition to the example NFP trading strategies we have looked at, another option is to adopt a wait and see attitude. So what is a wait and see attitude? It's like I'll wait for the market and I'll see how the market will react, and then I take the right decision. So many traders, and not just beginners, actively choose to stay away from the markets around the times of big news releases, such as the non-farm payrolls, because of the volatility and wild market movements which can accompany these types of events. Instead, this group of traders may watch what happens during the news announcements, wait for the market to settle, and then take a decision on what to do based on the announcement and how the market reacted. This goes back to each and every trader's decision. So you might look at the market, how it's going to move after the release of the news. I might enter the market before the news release. I'll just like based on news, based on talks, based on things that is happening in America, I can predict what's going to happen and just enter the market before the release of the news. And some people, as you said, we take this wait and see. So if you do choose to trade during the NFP, it is highly recommended that you practice any non-farm payroll strategy thoroughly on a demo account before implementing it on a live account. So we always recommend you to open a demo account and try to trade once at least the NFP and then apply your strategy on a live account. So it can also be useful to back test your strategy by going back over historic price data and seeing how your NFP strategy would have worked in the past if you had used it. Note what would have gone right or wrong and adapt your strategy accordingly. So basically, if you have a strategy, you have already the data of the previous NFP results. Try to apply them on the results that came out as expected. See how market will move. You will see if this is a suitable strategy or not. We're gonna go into a brief market overview now. Just one second. Just open the trader. Yeah. Okay, just one second. We're trying to open MetaTrader. Okay, here we go. Okay, so basically, you can see the price of US oil right now. It's increasing. During the day, it was around 79. Now we can see it's around 80.1. UK oil is around $83.8. Nasdaq is around 15,335. As we can see, we have a huge decrease from 15,700, 15,800 to 15,300. This is a huge decrease for Nasdaq. Now, if we go back to 4 hours, go back daily, you can see this decrease. Okay, so moving into SPX also, it's moving around 4,495. Dow Jones, which is US 30, is around 35,177. We have DAX 30 around 15,855. Let's see gold where it's moving now. Here we go. Gold is moving around 1937. We might expect an increase in gold, especially with what's happening in the US now. This is a brief market overview. Next week, we will be having a training session. We will be giving you a like certificate to keep it for you. In this sense, you would be learning how to trade, and you'll be getting okay, just 1 second. I have a question. Okay, so please, if you need anything, scan the barcode on the right to contact me through WhatsApp. You can scan this barcode. Scan this barcode to follow our social media platform, join our Telegram channel to keep you posted with all the news and what's happening. And I'm more than happy and welcome to have a one-on-one session with you to educate, hear your questions, listen to everything, and check what to do. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining.